Welcome to this explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're joining me today because honestly, we're embarking on a journey into one of the most fascinating, mysterious, and downright unbelievable aspects of the animal kingdom. We're talking about nature's grand illusions. You know, those hidden survival mechanisms that exist right under our noses. Mother Nature is the ultimate magician, and today, we are going to pull back the curtain on some of her absolute best tricks. To kick things off, just look really closely at the creature right in front of you. Notice the eyes, the scales, the way it's positioned on that branch. It is a menacing, terrifying green snake, and it is actively preparing to strike at any moment, right? So, what species do you think this is? A viper? Maybe a young python? Take a quick second and lock in your guess. Well, hold on to your seats. What if I told you that you're looking at a total lie? What if that creature isn't a reptile at all? Get ready for some immediate cognitive dissonance because this terrifying snake is actually an insect pulling off literally one of the greatest biological illusions on planet Earth. It has absolutely no fangs, no venom, and no bones whatsoever. Section 1. The Art of Deception. Okay, so to understand how an insect can possibly trick us into thinking it's a deadly reptile, we really need to understand the rules of the wild first. In nature, survival is this high-stakes game, where being small usually means you're going to be someone else's lunch. So, to avoid that fate, countless creatures just have to lie to survive. Deception isn't just some cool party trick, it is an absolute biological necessity. Let's start with the basics of who we're actually dealing with here. An insect is an invertebrate with a hard outer shell and absolutely no backbone. Because they lack a massive internal skeleton, they're generally pretty small. And being small, well, that means you're under massive constant predatory pressure from birds, mammals, reptiles, and even other insects. You are essentially a walking protein-packed snack. Now, it's worth mentioning that not all insects are defenseless victims. The insect world definitely has its own real terrors. Take the emerald jewel wasp, for instance. It's a stunningly beautiful but genuinely horrifying predator that famously paralyzes and tortures cockroaches to feed its young. So yeah, it has real weapons. But on the other side of things, we have the pretenders. These are entirely harmless insects. No stingers, no venom, no armor. They desperately need a brilliant disguise just to make it through the day. Section 2. Insects in disguise. So how exactly do the harmless ones survive? Well, they use evolutionary strategies that have been perfected over millions of years. Basically, they wear disguises. They mimic terrifying creatures, toxic plants, and even just the invisible background noise of the forest to avoid becoming prey. Let's look at exactly how they pull this off. Notice the sheer visual similarity when you look at a dangerous yellow jacket compared to a harmless bee beetle. The yellow jacket is highly aggressive, extremely territorial, and armed with a really painful sting. But the bee beetle, it's covered in those exact same yellow and black markings, but it is completely harmless. By wearing the same uniform as the tough guy, the bee beetle creates total confusion for predators. A bird sees those yellow and black stripes and just thinks, nope, definitely not worth the pain, and flies right on by. In the scientific world, we actually categorize these disguises into two main types of mimicry. First, there's Mullerian mimicry. Think of this sort of like street gangs sharing the exact same warning colors. Several harmful stinging insects will all adopt the same bright yellow and red patterns to reinforce to predators that everything wearing those colors is super dangerous. Then there is Batesian mimicry, and this is basically the biological equivalent of stolen valor. This is our harmless bee beetle dressing up in a scary Halloween costume. It doesn't have any actual weapons, but it steals the warning colors of the tough guys to get a totally free pass from predators. And then we have cryptic coloration, which is camouflage taken to an absolute extreme. Just see how the orchid mantis perfectly, seamlessly blends into a pink flower. It's not even mimicking another insect, it has literally become part of the environment itself. It hides in plain sight, remaining totally invisible to predators, all while patiently waiting to ambush unsuspecting prey that land there, thinking they're just visiting a nice flower. Section 3. The snake-like caterpillar. Remember that terrifying green snake from the very beginning of the explainer? Well, a viewer recently sent me a message saying, "Hattis ni analysiert leti tushbe el afa," which means, tell me about the caterpillar that looks like a snake. And I thought, absolutely, it's time to officially meet the star of our show. This is the mind-bending sphinx moth caterpillar, known to the scientific community as Hemeroplanes triptolumus. This little invertebrate takes the concept of Batesian mimicry and cranks the dial all the way up to 11. The really crucial point here is how it behaves when it's threatened in the deep forests of Costa Rica and Ecuador. When a bird approaches, this caterpillar doesn't just sit there. It actively expands its body segments, puffing up the area around its head to perfectly mimic the diamond shape of a snake. It exposes 2 spots on its underside that look exactly like the dark, calculating eyes of a reptile. And if that somehow isn't enough, it will actually lunge and mimic the aggressive, striking motions of a snake. It literally acts the part. But here is where the story gets even crazier. Notice what that terrifying snake grows up to become. It turns into the adult sphinx moth, just a completely ordinary-looking moth with robust, dark brown and black wings. It is absolutely awe-inspiring when you think about the stark, dramatic visual contrast there. It goes from this terrifying, striking reptile impersonator to a quiet, nocturnal moth. Section 4, Complete Insect Metamorphosis. This wild transition leads us right into the biology behind the magic. Because how exactly can a creature just temporarily be a snake? How does it have the genetic programming to live an entirely separate life with a completely different body plan, only to just discard it later? Well, the answer lies in one of the most incredible biological processes on Earth, holometabola, or complete metamorphosis. Looking at how this works proves that the snake form isn't the final creature at all. The terrifying snake disguise is literally just a teenager going through a really intense biological phase. It's a highly specialized, temporary survival suit designed for one thing: getting the insect safely through its absolute most vulnerable developmental stage. Let's walk through these exact life cycle steps to see just how specialized this is. It starts as an egg. Then it hatches into the larva, and this is where our incredible snake mimicry happens. The caterpillar's only job right now is to eat and not get eaten, hence the elaborate disguise. Once it has enough energy, it transitions into the pupa, which is a resting state wrapped in a cocoon where its entire body breaks down and rebuilds itself. Finally, it emerges as the adult moth, completely ready to fly and reproduce. The snake was just a stepping stone. To really understand how unique this is, let's compare it to other insects, because, not all bugs go through this radical shapeshifting. We have holometabola, which is complete transformation, like our moth, where the baby looks absolutely nothing like the adult. But then compare that to hemimetabola, or incomplete metamorphosis. In that process, the insect hatches as a nymph, which basically just looks like a tiny wingless adult, and it slowly grows larger over time. The complete metamorphosis of the sphinx moth is the only reason that insane temporary snake disguise can exist at all. Section 5. Why does this matter? So, we've seen the illusions, the incredible disguises, and the biology that makes it all happen, but let's take a quick philosophical step back here. Why does this all matter? Why should we care about a bug in Costa Rica that pretends to be a snake? Well, because it offers us a real-time visual masterpiece of evolution at work. These incredible illusions aren't accidents. They are the direct result of millions of years of rigorous, relentless adaptation. It is the absolute purest visual representation of survival of the fittest. It highlights this relentless evolutionary arms race. Predators get better at hunting, so the prey have to get infinitely more creative at hiding. The sphinx moth's disguise is literally a masterpiece, painted by millions of years of near misses and lucky escapes. Which brings us to our final thought for today. The sphinx moth might live out in the tropical forests, but this evolutionary arms race is happening everywhere, every single day. The next time you look at a leaf, a piece of bark, or a bright yellow bug hovering near a flower, look a little closer. You might just be falling for a magic trick. So I leave you with this question. What incredible nature illusions are hiding in plain sight right now in your very own backyard? Keep your eyes open and never stop questioning what you see. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.